And welcome into another edition of the Aggie Time Zoomcast. It's good to be back. Always love to talk to Aggie fans as we continue to keep you updated as best we can during this time of being at home and getting readjusted with everything. We want to let you know that UC Davis Sports is still moving ahead, and we're keeping you in contact with many of our favorite people. Today's edition, we're going to have a couple of our favorite football people here. We're talking with Tim Plough. Of course, he is the associate head UC Davis Aggies. He's also the offensive coordinator, quarterback coach, and Tim Keane as well. He's the run game coordinator and assistant coach for the offensive line. Collectively, they're known as the Tim and Tim boys. And first question for you is, why aren't you guys doing your own podcast during this time? I'd much rather listening to the two of you than asking you a bunch of questions.
It's been a rumor for a long time, but we seem to hit a snag in the road every time. But we are actually. Tim and I have talked about doing that for a while. We just need to get the right ducks in a row. Obviously, Coach Hawk's got his podcast launched.
That's right.
That one's really important, Uncommon Engineering. So maybe sometime 2022, 2023, we'll be cool enough to have the Tim and Tim podcast.
You guys are right there with it. All right, so I'm judging. It's the first chance I've had a chance to see you guys in a little bit, and I'm trying to judge the beard competition here. It's very, very close, I have to say.
I think I should be disqualified because I had this thing going before quarantine, so it's a technicality, but I think I'll take myself out of the race because this is like 3 months pre-quarantine.
I also think you don't have to judge Tim on his gray hairs because he has twin daughters. So he actually has 3 kids. I only have 2. So his gray hairs, I think everyone it's warranted based on the amount of chaos going on in his house and my house on a daily basis.
Yeah, Keane, you were telling us off air that you almost got decapitated today. What's it like life at home as you go through this and not being able to be in the office like you normally would be?
Well, it's one of those things where there's always every situation prevents a silver lining. So it's been amazing just to be at home and be with the kids and be with my wife and just be able to spend a ton of time. That part has been awesome, except for every morning I have to look over my shoulder because my son enjoys creeping out of bed and trying to find me like drinking coffee, or sometimes I'll be scrolling on Twitter and he'll try to take my head off or get me in a rear naked choke submission like he's young Uriah Faber and try to tap me out. And this morning he got me good. So I just had some ibuprofen and I should be good to go for the rest of the day.
Well, that's good. You're a gamer. You always were because you played with the Ags and certainly today. How about you for you, Plough? What's it like being at home right now?
Yeah, I think Tim said it best. It's been really cool to be home and be with my wife and be with the boys. We have a 4-year-old and a soon-to-be 2-year-old, and they have no idea what's going on. You know, they think this is like the coolest thing in the world. So I'm actually worried what happens when the smoke clears and we all go back to work. They're not going to understand when I'm not here anymore. But it's been a blessing in disguise. I think just being able to play baseball in the backyard every day. My son is a baseball fanatic, so a lot of baseball. He's really missing going to the Aggie baseball games right now. So we try to get a baseball game in the backyard every day. And so I'm trying to just soak in all this time with my family as much as I can, because I'm sure whenever we do get the green light, it's going to be a little chaotic.
No question. Take advantage of the time while you can in a very tough circumstance indeed. Now, I do have to give Keane the award for best background. Now, I know you've got your wife's favorite bands and behind.
Yeah.
But, I think Keane's Aggie pride wins the day on that one. So you get the beard, he gets the background. Is that fair?
Yeah. I think that's Everyone's good. A good judge. Although my wife will disagree. If you're not a Van Morrison or Rolling Stones fan, she'll probably. I
can't argue with that. I got a chance to go to the Rolling Stones last year in Santa Clara, and that was obviously a lifetime bucket list thing. So
she was there too. She was there with her brother.
Nice. Yep. Yes. Yep. I'm down with that. All right, let's try and talk a little football here. Obviously, you haven't had a chance to meet with the team except through Zoom meetings and virtual meetings and all those types of things. Can you catch us up on the latest with Aggie football? We know that you were able to, one of the few programs in the country, you actually went through your spring ball because you do it in winter quarter. So you had your preparation there. And I got to think at this point in time, unlike a lot of programs, you're kind of right where you expected to be before this whole thing started. Am I right about that?
Yeah, there's not a whole lot different right now from what we're doing to what we would have been doing, other than we would have been on the road recruiting, right? But we got all of our winter practices in, and all the meetings that we're allowed to do with our players are kind of the meetings we would have done anyway. We still get to meet as a staff and go over, opponents that we're going to play next year and come up with game plans. And so we really haven't been thrown off in that sort of element, other than recruiting is obviously way different. But everyone is even playing field there, so it's not like it's throwing us for a huge wrench. So we've been pretty fortunate, and we feel really good about the practices we got in. So we're looking forward to hopefully getting these guys back up here at some point and getting this thing kicked off.
Plough, of course, for you, everybody wants to talk about quarterback. That's always the off-season conversation with Jake Mayer, who has now moved on. And can you update us with Jake? I know he wasn't drafted in the NFL draft, but maybe you can give us an update on his status at the moment, and then go into how you're looking at things coming out of your winter, quote, spring ball, moving towards hopefully the start of the fall in time.
Yeah, Jake's doing great. He's obviously one of the guys, as many were affected by the coronavirus. A lot of the FCS guys, it's really important for them to have those pro days and to have the opportunity to get in front of other scouts. And he unfortunately didn't get that. And for a guy like him, I think it's really important for people to be in a room with him, hear him talk football, and see what kind of leader he is. So I think that probably affected him a little bit. He's got a lot of options on what he could do. I think the NFL thing isn't done with being an undrafted guy. I know the CFL really wants him, and he's talked to multiple people about that. And we've got some alumni, obviously, that have played in the Canadian League and have gotten him really excited about that. And I think he could do really well in that league. So Jake's going to play professional football, I think, for a long time. It just where that is or what league, I think will be fun to follow him. But I know he's working really, really hard, and I expect him to be very successful in whatever he does, and we're rooting for him. And then another quarterback I used to coach, Case Cook, he got picked up by the Giants. That was really cool for me to see.
Yeah.
So just cool to see those guys that you work with, get to that level. And Tim's had a lot of professional football players from his offensive line groups. It's a cool feeling when you work with these guys and you see them reach their dreams. Very cool. As for where we're at now, we had a really good quarterback competition in the winter. We have a very, very deep group. We've kind of over-recruited at quarterback, knowing that we were coming to the point where Jake wasn't going to be able to be with us anymore. And so we got a very deep group, a lot of talent in that group. And we haven't named a starter yet, but we feel good about where we're at. I would expect someone to come out of that room kind of like a lion climbing out of the cave of other lions, and whoever comes out of there is going to be a very, very good player. So I'm looking forward to seeing someone else take the reins and see what they can do with the offense.
Absolutely. And it'll be a wide open deal once you get into summer ball, if it's not summer before your camp. And you did mention that once camp gets started, you'll at least have a 6-week period before the season starts. So you'll get a good look at everybody again.
Yeah, I think nothing's official, obviously, but it sounds like NCAA is reporting there's going to be, a 6-week period there from whenever we get the green light to when we play our first game. And how that's all put together, no one really knows. But
sure.
So we're expecting plenty of time, obviously, for our guys to get in shape for the season, and that'll give us time to evaluate quarterback and other positions to see where these guys are at.
Sure. This is the Aggie Overtime Zoomcast. It's brought to you by your Geico local office. And again, for all your insurance needs, call your Geico local office, 923-5050. That's area code 916-923-5050. And Coach Keane, we talk about keeping in shape, and obviously for your linemen, for your running backs, different strategies, but still important. What are they doing right now? How are they able to get their work done? Are they able to, what types of things are they working with?
That's just such a fun thing about coaching at Davis is, like, I know those guys are working extremely hard right now, and they're always hitting me up asking me for extra drills they can do or extra game film they can watch. And it's fun to be able to work with guys like that are going to get their work done. So this is kind of like, normally we'd be building strength in the weight room with Coach Burke. And I think the guys now are kind of transitioning to more like, okay, let's just be powerful and explosive and actually kind of work more stuff that translates on the field. So I know the O-line guys are running and doing all their change of direction and more position-specific drills, which is funny. I don't know if there's a lot of like O-line, is that a skilled position? You know, it's like, and I'm going to go on a little soapbox right now and be like, those guys should be skilled position. You know, the receivers, those guys are athletes. That's an athlete position. So they just got to work on speed and, you know, a couple of skills where like O-line, you go from O-line to like retirement, you know, that's kind of the last step you do. So like, that was my career. I went from tight end to high school, then to O-line. And the next step was like, hey, go fill up the water bottle for you know, the quarterbacks and Coach Plough. So those guys have to work extremely hard on their skills. So this time is kind of, again, find the silver lining. It just gives them the opportunity to really hone in on their craft and focus on their skill, where I know they want to be working on their strength and the weight room with Coach Burke and have a ton of weight on the squat bar and doing a ton of weight with the bench press. But it's fun just to allow those guys to go work on their actual skill development.
Yeah, absolutely. For people who don't know, and most people within the program do, but there's a lot of people watching outside of the football program. You guys played together at UC Davis, same class. You protected the man you're talking to, Keane, up there. So you guys were literally tied at the hip. What was the football experience like playing at UC Davis together? I'll let either one jump in first.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it a lot, of just the great people we were around, you know, from Bob Biggs to Mike Morosky to Lou Bronson to, you know, Fred Arp, may he rest in peace, and Coach Soker, may he rest in peace. Just the great people we were around and how influential they were on our lives, not only as coaches, but as husbands and as fathers. But, you know, I as a backup quarterback, I didn't get out there very, very much. And, but I'll let Tim talk more about it. But, you know, we've talked a lot recently. We lost Mark Manfreda, which just crushed the Aggie football community. But people forget, you know, Tim was the guy that came in when Mark left. And that might have been the biggest shoes in the history of Aggie football, to come in and replace a guy like that. And I always really admired Tim for how he handled that. And you know, we always joke, we beat Stanford and Tim played amazing in the Stanford game, except for 2 plays. And they always show those 2 plays on whenever they show the highlights of the Stanford game, it's the 2 plays. But that's kind of the life of an O-lineman, right? Like, you do your job for the whole game and no one notices. And, but I feel very, very thankful to work with Tim and continue our friendship over now, you know, close to 20 years. And it's really cool to coach here with him and to win games here with him, and hopefully, you know, develop that kind of relationship like Coach Biggs and Coach Mo and Coach Bronson, all those guys had for a long time.
Absolutely.
I just think it's fun too. Davis guys, they're not, we love football and football is extremely important. But when me and Plough get together and hang out, you know, we're talking about being dads and husbands and politics. It's not, you know, just the X's and O's. So it's really fun to be around, you know, and have a bunch of Davis guys, Coach Hawk on the staff, because it's not, you know, football is extremely important. We're all very passionate, very competitive, but there's plenty of opportunity to kind of talk about other stuff, which is a lot of fun, like Survivor and all those other important
Oh
things.
yeah, don't get me going. Greatest show on television. Greatest show on television.
I don't know if I can go there with that one, but I do want to mention or talk a little bit more about Mark Manfreda, because obviously that was such a tough loss. Unfortunately, he suffered an injury and succumbed to those injuries. And I know you were so close to him, and a lot of talk about getting him into the Hall of Fame. I know, Tim Plough, you were very vocal on that on social media. I totally agree. Watched him. I think he was the greatest offensive lineman I've ever seen play at UC Davis. And maybe Tim Keane, you can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, Mark was just a special person. He kind of, in his own way, was able to bring out the best in everyone. And I think that's the true hallmark of a great offensive lineman, is you can make other people better. And he had the hugest heart, and he was, again, one of the fiercest competitors, and was also so giving with his time and his knowledge of football. And I think that's kind of one of the reasons why we have so many guys in the quarterback room, is because, you know, I was able to learn, all the other offensive linemen were able to learn from Mark. It's like, hey, Jake is kind of like in this same mold of a very special person that's got enormous leadership qualities. Let's get as many guys around Jake as possible. It's kind of what we did with the quarterbacks. And a big reason that we did that is because Mark kind of had all those leadership qualities and those abilities to kind of make all those guys around him better. So he's a very special person. There's this little O-line working group right now, spearheaded by Coach Morawski, that's working extremely hard to get him in the Hall of Fame because he's extremely deserving.
Yeah, and I think he's going to end up there one day. He certainly is more than deserving of that honor. As we speak with Tim Keane and Tim Plough here, you do have the Aggie pride in your background there. I'd like each of you to talk about Aggie pride a little bit. Both of you so close to the late Coach Jim Soker as well, and he's the one who kind of is the one who is synonymous with Aggie pride, but it means something to everybody who is a part of UC Davis, whether they played football or not, just was a student there. Everybody kind of knows what Aggie pride's all about, but could you talk about that a little bit individually?
Yeah, I think initially it's one of those things that it's almost like a secret that you don't talk about. Either you're part of it or you're not, and that always made it really special. Even when we would leave and go coach other places or go somewhere else, it was like, hey, I'm a Davis guy, and I know what Aggie pride means. But I think the cool thing about it is it has its own meaning for each player that was a part of it. Obviously the trust, unity, and togetherness that Coach Soker started with, and I think that's still a big part of it. But I just think it's about young men that are selfless, that are willing to sacrifice for their teammates, for the greater good of the team, that they have pride in their school, and they have pride in what UC Davis stands for as an institution, and they have pride in the football program that has had a long tradition of winning and championships, and there's a lot of pride that comes with that. So it's the combination of that uncommon engineering that Coach Hawk talks about, where you can be a rare individual that understands the bigger picture in life, that we want to be great athletes, we want to be great football players, but we also want to be great human beings, great fathers, great husbands, and how that affects all of us. And so to me, the Aggie pride is all encompassing of those things. And if you are an Aggie, and when you do say that, that phrase as a team, when you break down or whatever, there's a little bit of extra meaning for it. And I think that's the cool thing about being a Davis guy.
Absolutely. Tim Keane, anything you'd like to add on that?
No, just like Coach Paul hit the nail on the head, but it was one of those things like happened, but there was never on a T-shirt. It was on, it wasn't a slogan. It wasn't in the building. Everyone just knew, and it was passed on from coach to upperclassmen, underclassmen, and it was just this thing that you kind of had to know and experience, and it is very individual for each person. And the great thing about Davis is when you go in the locker room, there's 100 other guys out there that are pushing you to be better, that can demand your best without having to get in your face or be confrontational. And that's kind of the special thing about being at Davis, is just being in a room with all these special people just naturally makes you the best version of yourself.
Absolutely. As we continue on in the Aggie Overtime Zoomcast, today's sponsor, Sudwork Brewing Company. They've been crafting award-winning brews and fresh, locally sourced food since 1989. Stop by their new contactless drive-thru and pick up a six-pack of Gunrock Lager and a giant Bavarian pretzel to go. Pre-order at sudworkbrew.com or call 530-302-3222 today. Support your local businesses and, of course, go Ags. Coach Keane, obviously you have a lot of returning talent on the offensive line. That's got to excite you going into the season next year.
Yeah, it's super exciting, and those guys are revved up and ready to go. And there's been a lot of different configurations of offensive line that we've had over the last couple of years with starters and guys playing. And I think that's going to continue to be the case, where just the guys that start the first game, that starting five, is not going to be the group that starts the last game. So that's the fun thing at this level of football, at FCS football. There's always moving parts in that offensive line room, and guys are playing tackle one game and then guard the next game. And then you got guys like Connor Pettick, who's done a phenomenal job as for center, and we play center, 2 practices before the first week of the season. So there's just got to be a lot of fluidity, and those guys got to be smart and be able to kind of adjust on the fly. And that's, I think, the biggest thing about having experience is got to do that and transition, really real quickly.
Yeah, Connor Pettick unfortunately suffered an injury lost a lot of the year. Jake Parks, a lot of people think he's an All-American candidate coming into the season. So certainly a position of a lot of depth for your team this year. Just wondering, in terms of just the coaching staff, how are you guys using the time right now? Obviously, you guys are meeting all that stuff too. Are you going through tape from last year? Are you looking at opponents already for next year? How are you using that time, Coach Plough?
Yeah, we meet every day as a staff on Zoom. Not for a long time, just maybe for an hour or two, just to catch up and kind of get in the same headspace. But right now, our big focus is recruiting, most importantly, and then we are prepping for our opponents next season. So we have all this time to use. Usually in the off season, we only do like the first 4 opponents, but right now we're really kind of going through the whole season and looking at the teams we would play and the issues they may cause and the things we got to look out for. And then also, doing some self-scout report on ourselves from winter ball, on what we liked, what we didn't like. We were disappointed with a lot of what happened in the season prior, and know that offensively we definitely left a lot of points out there. And so we went back, had a great off season, looked at ourselves, and really were critical on the things we got to get better at. Felt like we did that in winter. So we're really excited about the direction we're in. A lot of that starts with that offensive line group, but a lot of the guys that we get back from injury that we didn't have last season, we're excited to have all those guys back.
Yeah, no, everybody should be fully healthy, and that's always a great thing. Obviously, as you look into the fall and you talk about looking at opponents, you don't necessarily know what the schedule will be. I mean, the schedule is set, but you don't know if it will start on time and how many of those games you might get to play or not. So that kind of adds an extra X factor to this season as well.
Yeah, no question. I think we're just trying to be fluid, and you can only control what you can control, right? And sometimes you got to be careful too. There's hundreds of thousands of people that have lost their lives in that time period, and sometimes football can be seen as probably not that important in the grand scheme of things. On the flip side, I do think sports in general provides a great avenue for us to get back to normalcy and to feel like we're all together and doing something that we all care about. And football is obviously a very popular sport in our country and brings a lot of people together. So we're just trying to control what we can control. We know the teams that we're supposed to play right now, and so we're going to just move forward as though that's going to happen. But at the same time, adapt, improvise, and overcome. We're willing to go play whoever we need to play, and whenever that happens, we'll be ready for it. We're just really hopeful that we get the opportunity to play, and we're very positive in that sense that something's going to get done by a lot smarter people than us, that we'll be able to get some kind of football season in.
Absolutely. I should mention that the season tickets are on sale, so go to UCDavisAggies.com. Check that out. They've laid out all the contingencies for the upcoming year, but certainly would love to have you out at UC Davis Health Stadium next season, should we be able to have fans and have a season and all that good stuff. All right, so let's turn our attention now. We talked about you guys doing your own show, the TNT show. We'll call it the Tim and Tim show. Whatever you want to come up with, great. You guys have great chemistry, personality together. What are some of the things you guys would like to talk about if you did your podcast a la a Hawk podcast?
I think that what we've talked about is doing a kind of a coaching podcast through kind of the annals of UC Davis coaching trees. There's so many great coaches in all sports that have come from UC Davis that I think it'd be really fun for people to hear their story and hear where they came from and how they became successful. I know that, I have a good relationship with Coach Peterson, but Coach Keane's been around some great coaches. We got some great coaches on our campus right now. Our women's basketball coach might be one of the best in the country. Our water polo coach, Coach Layson, is awesome. We got some great coaches on this campus right now that we'd love to get on a show where Tim and I can kind of ping some questions at them and see why they're so successful and what they've done in their career to get to that point. Also, just hear their story on how they got there. And you'd be surprised how many coaches have graduated from Davis that are coaching all over the country in different sports. And so that was kind of our thought going into it, that we would obviously talk a lot of fun stuff about our lives, a lot of it on Survivor or The Challenge on MTV would be a main focus. But other than that, it'd be talking to other coaches and talking about being a dad or a mom and being a college coach and how difficult that is. And so that'd be some of the topics we'd get into.
Everyday life. Obviously, you're pro survivor. Coach Keane, what's your deal on the TV front?
I watch a lot of Frozen 2 and Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, and that's kind of we actually we cut our cable right before this quarantine.
Oh, bad timing.
And so like 2 weeks into it, I had to call I didn't get the cable back, but I upped our internet speed significantly. So I was like, hey, what's the fastest internet speed? We're going to need to get that. So get that turned on immediately, please. So, but we kind of guilty pleasures been the Tiger King. We did kind of indulge in the Tiger King, which was pretty entertaining.
That was must-watch Netflix television. There's no question about it.
Incredible.
Even President Trump got asked if he was going to pardon Tiger King. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I did just hear that there might be a made-for-TV movie, and playing Joe Exotic would be Nicolas Cage, which I thought was
he'd be perfect.
Perfect casting. Perfect casting for Joe Exotic. But I don't know, man. There's so many rabbit holes you can go down through that show. Yeah. Every time an episode would end, my wife and I would look at each other and be like, did that just happen? Like, is that real life? And then you'd be like, that did happen. That's actually what happened in real life. So I don't know. There's so many ways you can go on who you want to support, but I just wish there was more content for us to watch in the Tiger King world. So I'm looking forward to the Nicolas Cage, Joe Exotic show at some point.
That would be must-watch television. There's no doubt about it. And obviously, we still have some time to catch up with a lot of our viewing. Hopefully, it won't be much longer. Hopefully, we'll be getting back out to some semblance of practice and then hopefully getting into some fall games. We certainly look forward to that. We look forward to hopefully a future podcast with you guys. I'm going to be working on that on your behalf.
Nice.
Get that done as well. So, but anyways, it was great catching up with both of you. Glad both of you are doing well. Your families are doing well. Try to avoid getting Coach King by your kids in the next few weeks, and we'll look forward to seeing you during the football, guys.
Thanks for having us. That's awesome.
Yep. Great to talk to you. That's going to do it for this edition of the Aggie Overtime Zoomcast, again brought to you by your Geico local office. We'll have more people coming up in future weeks. We appreciate you watching, and as always, go Ags.
Go Ags.